Hello and welcome here to TalkFCB and welcome back to the channel here today, guys, where it is the day after. Do we feel any better? Not really. Have I calmed down at all after yesterday's match review? No, I haven't calmed down either. So today, it's going to be more of the same. You know, I'm still very frustrated. I'm still disappointed. I'm still embarrassed about that performance, to be perfectly honest with you. But today, we're not only going to be talking about the team, you know, what went on the field, what went wrong, everything. But we're also going to be talking about some Hansi Flick quotes, which, in my opinion, I'm struggling to get my head around. I am struggling to understand for the first time here where he is coming from in his assessment of the game. So there's lots to talk about, lots to get through. So come on and let's do this. Because first things first, I would like to give a very special shout out here to Jesse. I really do appreciate the support once again, my friend, in a very difficult moment. I know that he saw this game live. I know several other people last night were at Stamford Bridge. And yeah, I'm sorry for everybody that travelled. You know, it was a big experience. It was a big night for all of us. And I think we're all heartbroken. I think heartbroken is the perfect way really to explain exactly what we saw in yesterday's game. What is also interesting here, though, I want to talk about a comment here. Super thanks coming in from Yusuf. As much as we don't want to excuse Barca's performance, it's worth noting the huge gap between Spanish and English teams. We can't compete because of FFP and because of Javier Tebas. And yeah, look, we're not going to excuse the team's performance. That is not something we're going to do in today's video. Believe me on that. But I do have to say on this, that's a very valid point. When you look at the Champions League this season, Villarreal, they are nearly at the bottom of the league phase. Athletic Club, they're not far away either. You know, Atleti, Barca, Real Madrid, they've all, you know, been pretty mediocre in terms of the Champions League standings. So right now, La Liga, in terms of the European elite, they are starting to fall behind. And yeah, of course they are. Premier League clubs can spend whatever they like. I mean, take Estavao as an example there. That guy's dream is to play for Barca. Always has been. When he was leaving Brazil, all that he wanted to do was sign for Barca. Could we get him? No. Simply because we were not allowed to spend the money that Chelsea were. So now they have him. And what a player he looks like, by the way. Absolutely incredible goal last night. It hurt me to watch it, but what a strike from Estavao. But yeah, that's an example of La Liga having these restraints, having these absolutely terrible financial restrictions, you know, so restrictive on actually being ambitious, on building out your squad, on strengthening what you have. La Liga are falling behind the Premier League. Every season, that gap, it does get bigger. But yeah, guys, it was shocking, wasn't it? It was absolutely terrible last night, and I still feel awful. You know, I went into that game, and I know there were some people with the same feelings. I know there was some people who were a little bit sceptical about my excitement, but, you know, at the end of the day, I want to be excited about the team. Is it so bad here that I want to look forward to the games, that I want to go into a game against Chelsea thinking, you know what? We can win this. You know, I want to have belief. It's not as though here I just want to be negative all the time. It's not as though I'm going to enjoy here absolutely roasting the team today. We don't want to do that. But I think what we saw yesterday, it wasn't even about the fact that we were outclassed by Chelsea. You know, we were outclassed by PSG. We didn't cause a massive fuss after that game. What really hurt us fans yesterday, in my opinion, was the lack of effort. It's the bare minimum that you expect in a big Champions League game. It's a test. It's a real moment to show your quality. And they did nothing. It was like from the first minute of that game, they threw the towel in. They just gave up. It's like they couldn't be bothered to go out there and match Chelsea. And that is embarrassing. If you are out there on the pitch in a Barcelona shirt, and especially if you're somebody wearing the captain's armband, expect better. Do more. You should be held to a much higher standard than that. And I would use an example here, Rafinha. You know, he wasn't on the pitch too long. He's had to wait a long time to come back. He came on. He actually showed a bit of fight. He was running around. He was looking to close the ball down. And if you actually watch Rafinha after he came on, there were several moments in that game where he's charging after the ball, when he's looking to close Chelsea down. And then he turns around. There's nobody with him. There's nobody supporting him. There's nobody backing him up. And he was screaming at his teammates because he was all alone out there in trying to win that ball back. And that is the issue here. That is the problem. Nobody seems together. Nobody seems cohesive. Nobody seems organised right now. The team from front to back, it was an absolute mess. And that is a massive concern. Because you know something else, guys, that in my opinion here should be highlighted? The small number of Barca players who actually approached the fans after the final whistle there. There was a lot of Barca fans in attendance who made the trip for that game, paid the money to be there, and you could hear them as well. You know, even in the second half there, when Chelsea were winning this game comfortably, Barca fans were doing everything to support the team. And yet, you can't even all go over there and applaud them. Go over there and clap them. Go and face the fans. A very, very small number of players actually did it. And that mirrors what they were doing on the pitch. You know, they couldn't be bothered to run from one side to another. They couldn't even be bothered to walk over to the away fans. And you know what, as well, after the game, I think only Joan Garcia, Eric Garcia, and Rashford, they were the only players that faced the media. They were the only players there that came out and spoke about what we saw from Barca. Where are the captains? Where are the leading figures of that dressing room there? The experienced players, the players who should be guiding the younger ones. Where are they? Where are they? Nowhere to be seen. And I've seen Jamie Carragher this week, by the way, talking about Mo Salah right now at Liverpool. He basically said, well, when we're winning, when everything's going well, when you want something, you're happy to talk. You're happy to come out. You know, you're everywhere in the media. Then where are you when the times get tough? And I would think about somebody there like Frenkie de Jong, an experienced leading figure in that dressing room, one of the captains, one of the very, very highly paid players at Barca for season upon season upon season. This is a great time to show some leadership. You know, it would have been a great time out there on the field yesterday. I don't think as well that midfield was a mess. You know, Frenkie at times was on his own. I thought he played very, very poorly yesterday. But we were so isolated there. We were so exposed. And you expect more from leading figures. Where are you when we need to hear something? When we need somebody to front up, take accountability. If I'm Araujo, I'm the captain. I get sent off. Absolutely ridiculous decision. Go and speak. Go and put yourself in front of a camera and say, look, I messed up. Because I tell you what, we would all have respect for that. But you didn't do that against PSG. Gundogan called you out on that occasion, and instead of learning from it, instead of using that as an experience here to grow as a professional, to grow as a Barcelona player and a captain, you instead shirked that responsibility. You did not take ownership. And yeah, for me, the last straw. It's the absolute last straw. I said this yesterday about Araujo. I'm still fuming about that decision. I do not believe it was the sole reason behind our poor performance. I thought we were awful even before the red card. But it was the nail in the coffin. It was the final straw, and it's still infuriating. But indeed, guys, in terms of where we stand right now in the Champions League, well, in terms of the standings, we are 15th in the table, which already, that doesn't sound good. You know, Barca being 15th in any table is very, very worrying, and we will drop further. There's plenty of games that take place tonight. We played a game more than plenty of the teams below us, so Barca are certainly at risk here of dropping another few places, perhaps. But that's the thing about the current Champions League system. It ultimately rewards mediocrity. Because I tell you right now, with the way that we've performed in the Champions League this season, we deserve, and I'm being honest here, we deserve to be staring down the barrel of elimination. We don't deserve to be in the Champions League right now. If we continue to perform like this, we don't deserve a place in the knockout stages. But yet, we'll probably get one. At the end of the day here, you know, you can finish in the top 24 and find your way into a playoff round. So on the one hand, I don't really think right now we deserve it. I think we have to do more in the coming games. We should be pushing ourselves. We should be really realising this is not good enough. But yeah, if we do find our way through, if we do manage to somehow change things, turn things around, there's still that window. There is still that potential, you know, come next year, perhaps, that things could be different. Because let's move on now then to talk about Hansi Flick and how he reacted and basically how he summed up last night's performance against Chelsea. Now, like I said before, there's some parts of this that I agree with. There are some parts that I do disagree with from Hansi Flick. So let's just start by saying here that I believe Flick mentioned this miss by Ferran Torres on 3 different occasions in his press conference there. He spoke about the fact that we had a massive chance. We had a really golden opportunity to score in the opening minutes of the game, And that did hurt us. That did cost us in the end. And I do believe on Flick's part, it was a clear mistake not to start Marcus Rashford on the left-hand side. He was clearly fit. He was clearly ready. He came on at half-time. He could have started this game. It was a mistake to play Ferran over him. And that's why I feel sometimes with Barca, looking at the Champions League, that La Liga can actually hurt our ambitions. Because just because Ferran scored 2 at the weekend against a very, very poor Athletic Club team, one of the goals was a massive blunder from the goalkeeper. Another one, he was sent through on goal by Yamal with acres of room. Just because Ferran scored 2 in that game, it doesn't mean he has to start against Chelsea. It doesn't mean he's ready to start there on the left wing against Chelsea in the Champions League. So for me, that was a mistake. That did cost us. It's a massive miss, and it's something that Ferran does have in his locker. But that's why I find it extraordinary. If you go back a few weeks, listen to Deco. He says, do we need to sign a striker? Barca don't need a striker. There's no need to be obsessed with signing a striker. Maybe it's possible to play without a traditional striker. Maybe Ferran can play as the number 9. Looking at Barca's future. PSG won the Champions League without a main striker. So he is saying right now, with Robert Lewandowski's time at Barca potentially coming to an end, we don't need to worry about it. We don't need to be obsessing over the number 9 role. This is the guy who should be planning our future. You should already have in mind what the plan is. And let me tell you now, it should not be Ferran. Ferran should not be the leading number 9 in a Barcelona team. This is Barca. Come on, guys. This is Barcelona. Think about the strikers. Think about the number 9s we've had over the years. Ferran Torres is not the number 1 choice. Flick also did speak there about the other individual moment from the game, the red card to Ronald Araujo. He did say the second card happens. Sometimes, it can happen. Perhaps he could have avoided intervening like that, but in the end, this can happen in football. It wasn't the right time nor the right match, but this is how it went. So Araujo, in terms of Flick there, not too much said. I can understand that in some ways. Maybe he doesn't want to throw him under the bus in the public domain, but all that I can hope here is that behind the scenes, he has told Araujo what is what, because that was an absolutely ludicrous decision, and he has to be told, go and tell him, go and make sure he is aware that was absolutely ridiculous there. So maybe shielding him to the media, there's lots being said right now about Araujo, which I can understand. Maybe behind the scenes, he's been a lot more firm. But when Flick was asked basically, what can Barca learn from the game today? What happened out there? What are they going to take away from this? And he basically said, we want to play more aggressively, especially in 1-versus-1 situations. He said, when you see Chelsea, they always maintained possession of the ball. They played much more physically. They were more dynamic in those 1-versus-1s. And that's also what I want from my team. And what I find quite extraordinary, listening to a lot of people that watch Chelsea, every week, every game, a lot of people have said they're not usually like that. They are not usually as intense as they were in yesterday's game. They brought a higher intensity. They brought more aggression to face Barca. And the embarrassing thing? That's what I thought we'd do. That's what I thought Barca would do here in one of the biggest games of their season. I thought they'd up their level. I thought here they would see this as a moment to really strike and really bring their A game. Chelsea did. Chelsea left everything out there. They worked as a team. They really did bring one of their best performances at a key time. What did we do? We did nothing. Because then we move on to the topic of the high line. Hansi Flick inevitably was asked about the defensive line. He was absolutely ridiculed, can I say. I was watching the game here with UK commentary. Yes, it was a nightmare. Yes, it was absolutely horrible. But they couldn't believe what they were seeing. They could not believe the way that Barca continued to play, right up until the 90th minute. Even when it was clear things aren't working. They were absolutely being torn apart by Chelsea. It was unravelling, and yet they were flabbergasted. This is how we play. This is how we are going to continue to play. And what's extraordinary for me is that Flick was asked, look, is the high line the problem? Is the high line here in this game, did it not go well? He still says no. He is still saying, look, the high line isn't the issue. He said, I think we defended well. Well, you think we defended well? He said the problem was that we lost a lot of balls. It wasn't that they pressed us and we lost the ball. No, we were making easy passes and we were losing them. But he said, I'm positive. I'm positive about what we offered in the second half and how we defended as a team. I just don't get that, guys. I'm a massive Flick fan. I'm a massive admirer of everything that he's brought this club, and I really, really can't thank him enough for what he did last season. But I do not understand this quote here. I do not understand his thinking. Number one, thinking the high line isn't an issue, that it was never a problem throughout tonight's game with 11 men, with 10 men. It was a problem with both. And then to say we're defending well. I mean, the defensive players at Barca right now, they look awful. They look like awful defenders. Now, do I truly believe that they are awful defenders? Do I think that Balde is a poor player? Do I think that Koundé is a poor player? Do I think Kubasi is a poor player? I don't. But they look like it. Now, the question is, why do they look so bad? Why do they look like atrocious defenders right now? It's because they're being put in a very dangerous and damaging position. And I just cannot understand how we can sit here and say, oh, the high line's all good. That wasn't an issue. That wasn't the problem. We just continue like this because we're defending well. It is ridiculous to think like that. And if we do not change, if some sort of penny does not drop, how can we expect to improve? Well, it's interesting that we should say that, because if there's one quote here that maybe there's something to latch onto, maybe there's something that's going to happen. Maybe we're going to see a different kind of Barca. Well, according to Hansi Flick, he guarantees it. He absolutely promises soon you will see a different Barca. In the upcoming matches, we will be different. Because he says, I see how we train. I see the intensity that we train with. We've got players coming back now. Things are different from what they were 6 weeks ago. Now, my initial reaction to that would be, well, couldn't we have seen a better Barca? A bit of a different Barca last night, maybe? It would have been a good chance, a good opportunity away against Chelsea. Could we have not done a bit better then? But shall we keep waiting? Because let's wait and see. Ultimately, we can't judge yet. We can't say what's going to happen in 1, 2, 3 games' time. But all that I will say is, it's about the bigger games. Because sure, we've got a La Liga game at the weekend. Then we've got Atleti, though. So that game is going to be more of an indicator. But I just don't want to see us get too excited, get too hung up on beating smaller teams in La Liga, only to fall down when the big challenges come along. Ultimately now, we're going to see what this team is made of. Is there going to be any change? Are we going to do anything to the style? Are things going to get better? Are we still capable of making this system work? And that is what I want to know in the comments down below from you right now, guys. Do you still believe in the high line? Do you still believe here that with players coming back, according to Flick, it'll get better? It's not about the high line, according to him. It's about what happens elsewhere in the field. Can it still work? Can it still function? And can it still beat the very best teams in the world? Please do let me know, guys, in the comments down below here today. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're feeling. We need to get all of this out. So please, guys, I will see you in the comments. I will see you here soon. But thank you indeed for tuning in. And for all of your support, I'm going to go over and clap you. In your corner there. You're all in the corner. You've been incredible supporters. I'm going to clap you for your service. Thank you indeed. But until next time, guys, as always, Veshka, El Barça.